Do you even remember how to do this?
I know, right? I'm over here talking myself through it.
Are we going to have a big reset like we did on day one? Where I don't even know the name of our podcast? Or are we...
no, it's going to come back natural.
It's going to be like riding a bicycle.
That's what we hope.
We are recording.
Yay.
3.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Why am I nervous?
I don't know.
Why am I nervous? This is weird.
Oh.
I'm so happy you're back, by the way.
Yay.
I'm so happy. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
3, 2, and 1. Welcome to Season 3 and our 50th episode of Black, White, and Blue in the South, a podcast discussing Democratic politics. With a Southern flair, I'm Bill Kimler.
I'm Jumelle Brooks.
And we're coming to you from Greenwood, South Carolina, a little red county in a very red state. If you like what you hear and think others ought to be listening as well, please leave a rating. Write just a little review. Tell your friends about us. Follow us on social media, or better yet, somebody please call South Carolina House Representative John McCravey a wambulance. Because the man hasn't even been in this session for minutes and he's already complaining and crying about some things. Let's take a listen. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
I don't even know if you've seen this video, but what you're about to hear is South Carolina House Representative Wayne Newton. I think his name's Wayne Newton. No, that's a singer.
Yeah.
It's Wayne somebody.
Okay.
Or Chairman Newton. Maybe I got the Wayne wrong. But
okay.
He's the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee that John McCravey is a part of. Mm-hmm. So you're going to hear Chairman Wes Newton, I think his name is. You're going to hear him speak. And then you will hear a letter written by John McCravey.
Okay.
Here we go.
Let's go.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time, I would like to nominate my friend John McCravey for our second vice chair. John is a senior member of Judiciary Committee, been here for a considerable period of time, a good committee member. I appreciate
Weston
his service.
Newton.
And with that, I would also again move that the nomination be closed and that he be elected by acclamation.
Seeing no objection, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
3 hours later.
Dear Chairman Newton, I am writing to formally announce my resignation from the Judiciary Committee. I am less than enthusiastic about other bills recently emanating from this committee, propounded by special interests and their lobbyists, designed to erode the family. I've come to recognize that my perspective on key issues and values differs significantly from your approach as chairman. The differences have made it increasingly challenging for me to contribute effectively to the committee's mission. While I will sorely miss serving on the Judiciary Committee, I will never trade or compromise my conservative principles and deeply held values for any earthly position. Sincerely, Representative John McCravey.
Wow, what do you think, Jumelle?
2 things, and you highlighted the right parts of that letter. First thing is, he says that he has come to know that they disagree. He doesn't support the way the chairman runs. And the chairman starts out by saying, my dear friend. So clearly they didn't have a conversation about this nomination. So maybe somebody's a friend and somebody isn't, because he's been a friend to him before in order for him to refer to him as that. And the second thing is that last statement where he is talking about he can't sacrifice his principles. Good job. Good job for him for saying, I'm going to stand for something. I'm going to stand for something right. But I'm curious to know, why do you back away from opposition? If you felt so strongly in what you're saying, why not stay on that Judiciary Committee to bring to it what you feel it needs? Because clearly you think it's missing something, instead of throwing up your hands and running away from it.
That's exactly the point. These legislators at the state level are assigned to a committee. They don't get to pick and choose. This
Correct.
Isn't something they sign on the dotted line and then go serve and then bow out when they're not interested. You're appointed. That's part of the duty of being a House legislator. And he essentially abandoned his post because he didn't think the Republican chair of this committee was being Republican enough. Now, you heard his statements and his rationale. He doesn't list any specifics. He doesn't say what came out of the committee that he didn't agree with. But what do you think every Democrat who sits on these committees thinks. They're there to fight the good fight. Most of the time, with Republicans being a supermajority, things come out of these committees that they don't like. You don't see Democrats going and quitting and taking their toys and going home and crying to mama.
Exactly.
What is this?
Makes no sense. And then what he has to understand is that's the chairman.
Yes.
There's a committee which consists of other individuals. So what is to say that the whole committee is corrupt and doesn't align with his beliefs?
So why did he really leave? Well, he says that he's got principles that he will not abandon for any earthly position.
Not just any kind of principles, Bill. Say the word. He said conservative principles.
Whatever his principles are, right?
Thought, whatever, dude.
But let's look at the facts of this, because he sent out text messages. He posted on Facebook. He revised his story from that letter. So one thing that McCravy didn't bring up is the fact the Judiciary Committee has subcommittees. And John McCravy was the chair of one of the subcommittees. And this year, Chairman, formerly known as Wayne Newton, he kind of cleaned the slate and appointed all new chairpersons.
Okay.
So John McCravy lost his spot.
Okay.
So was John McCravy mad that he lost his subcommittee chair? And who knows?
Yeah.
The other thing is that he sent out in a text message was that somewhere along the way, a Democrat was appointed as a subcommittee chair.
Oh my gosh.
So the rationale among the House leadership was, hey, we want Democrats involved. You know, there's 1,000 positions. We'll throw Democrats like one of them, right? But we're going to at least put them in one for appearance sake. And John says there should be no Democrats in any leadership role whatsoever. So he quit the Judiciary Committee.
Wow.
Does he get reassigned somewhere else? We don't know. He's on other committees, you know, as part of the assignments. All these people serve on more than one committee. But the fact that you leave intentionally one of the most powerful and busy committees out there, that says a lot.
Yeah.
And that, to me, it says he's gone off the deep end.
Wow.
Well, I'll tell you what, let us know what you think by dropping us a note at blackwhiteblueinthesouth@gmail.com. Send us your comments, questions, and topic ideas. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, for a couple more days anyway, Threads, Mastodon, and now Blue Sky. You on Blue Sky yet?
I am.
We are on Blue Sky, so I expect a follow of our own podcast within a couple of minutes here. You know where you won't find us?
Where?
In that musk hole formerly known as Twitter.
We are out of there.
I canceled our account back in December. We are out of there, not participating in that cesspool. Go check us out. We share video clips of our episodes and news articles that'll enrich what you hear today. So look at those award-winning show notes in your little podcast app where you can find all of that and more. Well, Jumelle, I ended right at the end of our music.
Oh, that was cool.
That was professional.
That's what it was.
Wow.
That's experience.
Do I earn a Grammy?
Not really.
For that? No?
No, but that was good.
I think they call that in the radio industry hitting the post, where you time things just perfectly. Well, look at us getting back on that bicycle and riding. It's been a hot minute since we've been on the air.
Yeah.
Happy 2025, Jumelle.
Happy 2025.
Where we last left off in October of last year, we weren't even sure we'd be back.
We didn't know.
But here we are.
Yeah.
What led you to decide to continue this happy little venture of ours?
So I believe the biggest thing was the impact I felt we made on the podcast. I think we reached people. I think we were able to take complex topics and bring them down to levels where everyone can have this discussion at the dinner table. And I think we set off on a trajectory that will continue to break away at what the stigma has about South Carolina.
Wow, that is great. I'm very grateful. You knew my desires from the very beginning that I wanted to carry on. I couldn't do this on my own. I even tried a little test run, didn't publish it. It was horrible. Talking to myself is pathetic. I need you to bounce off of. And I look back at all of our old clips. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good. Objectively speaking, I listened to 37 different podcasts.
Wow.
We're among the best of them. So I'm really happy that you're back and that we're back and that we get to continue for however long we can continue. Who knows where life takes us.
Yeah.
I often chat with our friend Barrett Gruber on his show, the All About Nothing podcast. And I shared with him last week some format changes that I anticipate for our show this year. So let's have a listen.
Okay.
were we able to convince Dr. Jumelle Brooks to come back and record?
Yes. Yes. She gave me the all clear on Saturday. So after a month and a half of hiatus, almost 2 months actually.
That's
so
exciting.
We're going back in the studio this Sunday, and all new show coming out the following Wednesday.
That's exciting. My mother will be very happy to hear that you all are coming back, because I think she counted on hearing good Democrats on podcasts rather than.
Oh, wait a minute. We need to correct. We have pivoted. We are now Republicans. So we've decided to cross over to the winning team. So this. Sorry, I forgot to notify you, Jumelle. Southern Republican politics. So that's what we're going to do. So I forgot that. Did you not get that memo? I must have forgot. That's my.
I didn't get it either.
I'm sorry, Mom. Sorry, Mom. But yeah, we're going to be pro-Trump radio going forward. MAGA.
Look, pro-Trump radio makes a lot of money.
Exactly.
I mean, there is hundreds of millions of dollars to be made in pro-Trump radio.
But think about it, Barrett. The benefits are not only the incredible income that we're expecting to derive, but we don't even have to prep anymore. Like I used to do lots of research, take notes, references, prep stuff together. Now with the Republican radio show, we can just utter bullshit for 2 hours straight. We don't have to fact check anything. People are going to believe it, and we'll be popular. So this is going to be awesome. It's win-win.
Wait, you don't even sound right saying MAGA. Did you hear yourself on that? It was like
I think my
MAGA?
voice cracked. Like a teenager at a drive-through. MAGA! I couldn't even say it seriously.
You couldn't.
Well,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
We're
So
back.
let's talk about the future of the show. To be honest, we don't really have any new major plans. I see more topics being covered that are of the time, more guests.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to guests. And by the way, for you listening, if you feel like you would like to be a guest, if you've got something you wish to say, we would love to have you in our studio in person, or we could also do Zoom remotely, but being in person, I think, works best most of the time. And I would also love to do more live appearances.
Oh, yeah.
What we did up in Oconee County, what we did in McCormick County, was that not the bomb?
It's the coolest thing ever. I'm addicted to those.
Yes. Maybe we should just do a show like at Applebee's. Just set up a
Just
table,
say,
do a show.
Come talk to us.
Yeah, but I just want the audience. I want people around, Maybe we do some guerrilla recording to show up in public places.
Yeah.
Now, last year, you and I were both candidates for local office, and we will talk about that in a bit. But what have you been up to since Election Day? All right, we haven't heard from Dr. Jumelle Brooks since October, November. What have you been doing since the election?
I kind of described it as my underground period, but just still running my business, teaching.
Are you like a cicada who's gone underground? You've buried your hole?
And when I come back with a vengeance. But yeah, so still running my business. Love that.
Talk about your business. What is that?
So
because you weren't running your business before.
Actually, I was opening my business while running.
Oh.
That was the thing that was crazy, right? So I opened the Nest Home Healthcare.
Was that Nunya?
The Nest.
I was thinking Nunya. Is it Nunya business?
No, I don't mind.
Sorry, bad
it was
joke.
a secret the whole time, though. No one knew that I was actually running for office, and showing up everywhere, looking like I had it together. And the whole time I was building a plan in the background. Got to always have a plan and a strategy. So I opened the Nest, and that is where we get to ensure that our aging population is able to remain in their homes for as long as they physically and mentally are able to do so. Most people that know me know that that is one of my passionate populations. So anything to ensure that they're taken care of, I just want to be able to give a little bit back there and still teaching.
And it makes a ton of sense, that industry. I've had parents go through the assisted living, the / nursing home. I know they don't like to call it that.
Yeah.
But from the moment that they're checked in, they're trying to claw their way back out. They just want to be at home, no matter how bad off they are, no matter how unable they are to take care of themselves, they want to be home.
Yeah.
And I get that.
Yeah, you spend all your life building that nest, right? And then you raise children, you may be married for so many years, and then as those things leave the nest, one of you or both of you are left there and you're still trying to figure out life. And nowhere in that plan did you decide that you're going to give up the thing that you worked so hard to build. So we're just there to help them.
Now, you haven't been so loud politically these last 2 months, although on your Facebook and Instagram feeds, you tend to promote more community help, community-oriented material rather than anything political. Is that a conscious decision?
No, I don't think it's a conscious decision, but it's playing out the way I want it to. And I didn't put much effort into saying this is the strategy for that particular move. But I think that in order to do what you need to do from a political standpoint, you can't forget the community. And while on the campaign trail, I ran into some amazing people who are doing great things. And so those relationships that were built, I will continue to support them.
Wonderful. Well, as for me, politically, I have rebranded.
You did.
So I've taken all of my campaign stuff and have rebranded as Political Bill SC.
Yeah.
And it's because I'm not done talking. Mm-hmm. There are things that I just have to get out of my head. There are opinions I have to get out of my heart, and there's education out there to correct a lot of the misinformation that we still see floating around. And for me, this is a time to get doubly loud. As I look back at the successes of the Republican Party during this last election cycle, what the Trump train has been able to do since they lost back in 2020, one thing Trump didn't do was go quiet. Mm-hmm. You know, the day after he lost, he was out there storming the Capitol, right? And then every day since, nag, criticize, nag, misinfo.
Yeah.
You would not know that he had lost an election. He stayed loud the entire time, and that's what allowed him to win not only the nomination, but to come back and win the presidency, because he never left. That's the way I chose to be intentional, was to not leave, you know, to be constantly in the ear, grow the online brand. I've spent a lot more time watching the hearings and committee meetings that are happening in Columbia, and then taking clips and commenting on them and putting them into context and educating the masses about the things that are happening that are good, regardless of what party is bringing the good.
Exactly.
And then also underscoring the ridiculous, because those same people hope not to be publicized on the ridiculous stuff that they're doing. So you can find me on all the social medias under the name Political Bill SC. I'm also winding down my time as chair of the Greenwood County Democratic Party. It will be 5 years in March that I hit that anniversary, and I have announced back in October of last year at our dinner that I was going to step aside, and there is no convincing me otherwise. And it's for the sanity of the party. I mean, I thought I did a pretty good job. I enjoyed every minute of it. People seemed to respond. We grew. We'd had no success in the elections, but sometimes there are forces bigger than what a county party can do. But still, you need to have other people train up.
Yeah.
You need to give them that experience. You need to give them that hands-on work. So I'm bowing out. I'm becoming more involved in church business. I was just this afternoon, an hour before recording, elected as elder of Westminster Presbyterian Church.
Congratulations.
Thank you. They put you through a rigorous training and examination.
Good.
There was the swimsuit competition part that, you know, I barely passed.
Okay.
But as an elder of this church, that means I'm going to be involved in running the church.
Oh,
That's me and the other elders. We are those ultimately responsible. And the work mission that I'm going to be part of is the business side of the church.
Yeah.
So the finances, the building and grounds, and all the other, you know, they have a constitution that's very much like our U.S. Constitution. It's eerily similar when you read it.
Wow.
And then finally, I am involved with Barrett Gruber on a little side project that just got off last week for the first time. It's called the Almost Daily All About Nothing podcast, which means twice a week we go live at 5:30 in the morning.
Wow.
Are you a 5:30 in the morning person?
I try to be, not consistently though.
We are, and so we go live on YouTube, and I think it goes TikTok live as well, every Tuesday, Thursday morning. And for about 20 minutes or so, nothing major. And that last clip you heard with me and Barrett came from our Thursday recording.
Oh, wow.
So we're excited by that, and it's fun. Cool. There's no agenda. There's no topics. There's no prep. It's just get up, you gotta scrape the crud out of your eyes, get that coffee pounded.
Because you didn't have any crud in your eye in that last video.
No, I was hyped up on coffee at that point. Okay. We have so much to talk about concerning current news, but first, let's wrap a bow on last year with one final On the Campaign Trail segment.
Fired up! Ready to go! Fired up! Ready to go!
I don't know if I'm ready to say goodbye to Obama and Edith Childs in our podcast.
I don't think so either.
Wow, But that just gave me goosebumps to hear that again. Well, as we had throughout our entire podcast, we've kind of shared what's happened behind the scenes with our campaigns. I ran for State House District 13.
And I ran for State House District 12.
Right next to each other here in Greenwood. Jumille's extended out into McCormick County. Mine extended a little bit into Lawrence County. But final thoughts about the campaign. Now, spoiler alert, neither of us were successful in our endeavors, although one of us was a lot more successful, came a lot closer to winning than the other. But what were your final thoughts? Have you been putting together what you were going to say today about that?
I haven't. Well, okay, so I'm going to give you the good and the bad. I think is the way I'll sum this up. The thing that I thought was most impressive was the amount of information and the amount of people that you met and how they interpreted the information that you gave them. So I'm always looking at how did somebody receive the message? And so on this campaign trail, what I've noticed is that communications is a partnership. Both of those parties play a role in how valuable or how impactful that information is. And so just reminding myself to make sure that I give the people what they need. Now, I always laugh about this because I'm always talking, but what was so strange to me is that I was getting asked to talk. That was new. If you ever say something and I think it's going against something that is for the good of the people, I'm always going to voice my opinion. But now people were starting to call my name and say, what do you think about this?
You have turned into a sought-out public speaker.
So weird.
Even after the election, I saw that you have been asked to speak at the MLK event in McCormick.
Yeah, it's weird.
You weren't even elected, but yet you made such an impact. You are such a good speaker.
Thank
they
you.
looked around and go, wow, we got to have her back.
Thank you.
She's not even from McCormick, and we're going to have her back.
We're not done. I think also learned that on the campaign trail, you never know where your support is going to come from. So be open, be fluid enough that when you see valuable information and you see compassionate individuals who want to pour into you, be able to relax enough and allow that to happen. I think that is one of the things that's important. For me, after the election, I went through what I consider the stages of grief.
All right, so it's election night. You show up at our election gathering at Montague's.
Yep.
We're watching the results come in.
Yep.
What were your thoughts during those numbers? Were you looking at the numbers? Were you just trying to distract yourself? How did you approach that night?
I was trying to look at the numbers, and my table wanted me not to look at the numbers. They were like, don't look at this, you got this, don't look at this. And I kept saying to people, I will only win this election if the people come out. If the people come out. Because hands down, it can be shade or tea. We normally say no shade, no tea, but hands down, the bottom line is we did not elect the right candidate for this House 12 seat. We sent somebody to Columbia that should not be there, and I still stand on that. However, the voting process worked. Individuals showed up, they cast their ballots. More showed up for that particular individual or for that party than did for me or for my party. And so I think we sent the wrong person there. So I keep that in mind. And I think from that, they were saying, don't look at the numbers. And I kept going, well, no, we need to look at the numbers. And then I got so many calls while I was sitting in that room saying congratulations. And I kept going, I didn't win. Like, no, you did. You did win. I'm like, you keep forgetting I got McCormick.
You look at the Greenwood numbers and you won, and that's a common fallacy.
Yeah. So they just kept going. I kept going, no. And they were like, oh, my God. And then I heard so much of, even after that night, oh, I'm so sorry. It should have been you. Don't drop your head. And I kept, and maybe people thought something was wrong with me, but I kept going, I'm not dropping my head. Like, I actually thought we ran a hell of a race. I thought we made a tremendous impact on both McCormick and Greenwood. The final result didn't end where we wanted it, but we shook some stuff up, and I think that momentum we won't let die.
Well, I'm going to step outside of the type of stuff you're supposed to say as a candidate.
Yeah.
And some conflicting feelings that I have, having gone through this now a second time.
Okay.
So there's a side of me that relished every minute. I mean, I love the messaging. I love the challenge. I love irking the opponent. I love trying to reach strangers, and sell myself. There's an aspect to that. I absolutely loved the supporters, the volunteers, the Alan and Tori and who else? Who am I forgetting? Mark.
Yeah.
Who were there with us from the beginning to the end.
Yeah.
And meeting other candidates and working closely with Francie and the Best Brothers and all the candidates. There's a bond there, an experience I will never, ever forget cherished every minute of it.
Yeah.
But then I look at 2022 versus 2024. And in my race in particular, I made no difference in terms of performance improvement from
In the 2 years?
In the 2 years.
Oh.
Not a single, it was the exact decimal point the same. So even trying a different style, trying a different strategy, being louder in the messaging, going at it different ways, being more public, going to more events, didn't change one iota.
Yeah.
And I wonder, does a candidate's campaign actually have any impact on a voter's decision? And I look at your campaign and just looking at it objectively, your predecessor really didn't campaign in 2022. She was injured through most of it. She had health issues. She didn't even really want to run, but nobody else did, and she didn't want to leave it empty. So she put her name back in there. And other than a mailer at the end, she really didn't put in a lot of effort. And she lost by just a few hundred votes. Now, you, on the other hand, you raised what, $2-3 million, right?
No,
comparatively speaking, you raised a lot of money. I mean, you were getting angels from on above just donating cash to you, and you got focused because yours was a flippable seat.
Yes.
And it still is a flippable seat.
Yes.
But then I look at the numbers, which were just about the same
Did
as
you
they were
notice?
2 years ago.
I had
Lost
that
by the
conversation.
same percentage. It was very, very narrow, by the way. Very narrow. And you would think that if you spent $60,000, or $1.3 million or whatever the number is, that it would make a difference. And it didn't. And the fact that you were dynamic and intelligent, and our opponents, both of them, neither of them campaigned. Neither of them spent money on mailers. Maybe you'll saw a billboard here and there, but they really put in zero effort. And I think this whole Trump versus Biden/Harris phenomena just overrode whatever impact we made. Now, we couldn't have known that ahead of time.
Yeah.
And had maybe Harris been the nominee from day one, going back a year and a half and working through that full cycle, maybe that would have smoothed out the Trump ripple as much as it did, or if Trump's convictions and whatever it was held. A lot of what ifs, but ultimately it seemed like all of our efforts went for naught.
Yeah. That's why I was in the stages of grief. I had a moment, someone called me and said, I can't believe, they were talking about another person, they said, I can't believe she hasn't cried yet. And I said, she cried? And I was like, well, I hadn't cried yet either. And here it is, January. I don't even think I've hit the sad part in grief. That's those stages. I'm stuck in angry. I'm still there. And the thing that makes me most angry is that for the individuals who saw it, because here's the thing, that if you look at my race and where the support came from financially, I had good support locally, but financially, I had money coming in from everywhere, which was mind-boggling to me. And they knew the importance of that seat going Democrat, right? So the frustrating part to me that keeps me in the anger mode is that there were so many people who got it and understood what we were fighting for. And they know what that seat needed to have happen to it. And those individuals, we took a beating. And the people who did not listen, even though we were screaming from the mountaintops, this is what we've got to do, chose not to do it for reasons whatever they were, and allowed the opposition to take a seat that they should have never had in the first place. And so now that small number of people who saw what needed to have happen still has to carry that group of people who didn't do anything. That's what pisses me off, because I look at my aging population and I see so many things that could negatively impact them. I look at our children and I see so many things that could negatively impact them. And we got the nerve to sit on our behinds and say, I ain't voting. That's where I'm stuck at in this angry phase. I'm not, check on me in a couple of months. I don't know when I'm going to come out the angry phase.
Well, I'm about to make you even more angry.
Okay, here we go.
I have a confession.
Oh, Bill, go.
I haven't even brought this up to you yet, but I figured I'd do it on the air to catch your reaction.
Okay, I'm ready.
It turns out that in this last election, I stole a vote from you.
Okay, that's good.
I did.
I'll take that.
So I was at one of our breakfast meetings.
Okay.
And a lady came up to me and she's like, I voted for you. I didn't see your name on my ballot, but I wrote your name in for House. And I go, well, did you see Jamel's name on there? Yes, but I wanted to vote for you. So she wrote me in.
So you're one of the 9 write-ins.
I was one of the 9 write-ins.
You're one of the 9 write-ins.
And so I literally stole a vote from you.
You
and
literally did.
I want to give it back.
At this point, I don't
No,
keep it.
no. But I looked at, and I didn't want to berate her. I mean, obviously she was confused.
Yeah.
And she knew who you were too, but she just thought that she could pick, and she wanted me so bad, and she didn't realize that wasn't an option.
Or Jesus, fix it.
And I'm pretty sure she misspelled my name on the write-in anyway, so it wouldn't have counted. But yeah, I have to confess that. I also got to share with you the most embarrassing political moment in the history of my life occurred.
Okay.
I think I shared this with you, but pretend like you didn't hear in case this sounds familiar.
Okay, because I don't.
You and I were together at the city hall for the mayor's youth council.
Yeah,
so the mayor of Greenwood, Brandon Smith, has a youth council where he gets interested high schoolers together to go over the local legislative process, look at city issues, talk with the council, etc. So he had a great idea to bring in all the local candidates and speak to the high school youth council. So there we all were in the lobby, and it was on both sides. There were school board members there, city council candidates there. You and I were there. So we're just all sitting there chatting, and this lady comes up to me that I didn't know, and she kind of points downward at me, and I look down, and my fly was down. See, I had just quickly changed, and it happens.
Yeah.
Right? You sometimes walk out the house and you forgot to put your fly up. So I was like, oh, thank you very much, you know, and quickly took care of business and said, I got to get you on my Christmas card list. I owe you one. That was very gracious of you.
Okay, yeah, that was
I was
nice.
actually mad at you, Jumelle, for not pointing that out.
And I was there.
Yeah,
you
were
saying
there.
I was there.
You didn't even bring it up, but so I could have walked in front of all those high schoolers and been arrested for
Then if I'd have saw it, I'd have said, Bill.
But as it was, this lady kind of helped me correct that situation. So anyhow, we go in. She was the first lady to get up to speak.
Okay.
Do you remember who that was?
That was the lady sitting beside me.
Do you remember who that lady was that first spoke? That was John McCravy's sister.
Shut your mouth.
My opponent's sister, the vice chair of the Greenwood County Republican Party, speaking on behalf of the Republicans and my opponent, was the one that caught my fly open and made the corrective gesture. And so when she went up there, she was the first to speak. I was the second, but she was the first to speak. And I went, no, of all the people in the universe that had to see that. And at that point, I just had to laugh. I didn't get flustered.
Yeah.
You didn't know any different when I went up there, but I was like, this is like a Seinfeld level of ridiculousness. I was a George Costanza times 100 in like putting myself in the worst possible position.
No, it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad.
Listen. The sister of my opponent had to point out my fly was down. I mean, come on.
She actually did you a favor. What if she had not?
She did, but I'm pretty sure she took that story back to the Republican parties.
Did.
And
I'm sure she did.
I'm sure they passed a resolution about it and labeled me a sex offender or something for walking in front of youth with my fly down.
No.
Anyhow, that was the most embarrassing political moment in my career. Do you have any plans for the future? Are you willing to state right here, right now, on our 50th episode that you are going to run again for this office?
I am going to run for office again.
Oh,
I am.
That was very careful choice of words.
It is. Because you never know how things work out. But
Governor Brooks, I'm so looking forward to it.
Oh, my gosh. I'm running, but I'm not going to run on my own. I want to make sure that we do even more damage on the ballot. I don't want to see uncontested seats. So
yes, Senator
Brooks.
Brooks.
I want to pull in as many people
Lindsey
as I
Graham
can.
is up for re-election, Senator Brooks. Are you going to dethrone
Can we
Lindsey?
focus? I want to pull in as many sound, solid, valuable candidates so that
State
no one
Superintendent
goes
Brooks. State Superintendent Brooks. I
go
like
unopposed. What about you, Bill? What's your plans?
I am 99% leaning towards not running again.
Are you serious?
That's correct.
For that seat.
For that seat or any public seat. I think I got that out of my system. But then again, I never imagined running for those seats to begin with.
Okay.
So this is going to be a big who knows. But right here, right now, I am closing my campaign accounts.
Okay.
I am pivoting towards being more of a political expert, a commentator, maybe even working campaigns at a larger level. I have a lot of interest in it. I'm more passionate about it than ever, but then I also look at the people in this town who don't know me and didn't get to know me despite the amount of effort I put into it.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. Now, one thing I want to say, I don't want to cast too sour of a note on running for office. Most rewarding experience of my life. And even in an environment as difficult as the one we're in now, it's not always going to be this difficult.
Yeah.
And lightning can strike. You know, one story I always tell is we have a representative out from Lexington, R.J. May. And this is a guy who's under federal investigation for child pornography.
Yeah.
He won his election.
He did.
He had no opponent. So when those allegations came out last summer, there was nobody to oppose him. And he got reelected by a population who, for the most part, may not have even been aware he was under federal investigation with his house raided and electronics confiscated and charges coming any day now. They may not even be aware. Had there been an opponent, had that been me as the opponent, man, I would have ridden that story all the way to victory.
That's one to ride.
Right? Like I would have to go to every house and say, if you support child pornography, vote for that guy. That is what that vote means. And I would have won. So you never know when lightning strikes or if your opponent tragically passes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You never know, and you have to be in that position to win it. So it's never, ever, ever hopeless. And I think one of the things the South Carolina Democratic Party has to do is work hard with the county parties and work hard with the people to inspire them to run for office and not leave 50% of the seats uncontested.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that starts we can wrap this part up, but I think that starts with the individuals too. I said this October of 2023, stop being afraid to lose.
I've embraced it personally.
Just stop, because you can win in so many other ways. And I've talked to candidates who were not successful, and their take on this thing was it hurt them that they lost. That is a part of growth. So if some of us have to take the L, put your name on that ballot and be prepared to take the L, because if we mess around and get that W, we can take care of South Carolina.
Amen, Dr. Brooks. Amen. Well, with that, let us catch up on some current news.
For up-to-the-minute reports, stay tuned to this station. Now the news.
Oh, you see how smoothly I just did that?
Gosh,
it's like
dude,
I did it with my eyes closed.
You're a professional.
Wow. Well, we're going to talk about the fires in California. This is something that hits personal to you and I, since we recently went through a natural disaster here in South Carolina with Hurricane Helene, knocking power out of, for hundreds of thousands of people. When there's another area, I'm a little more in tune with it. It's not just, it's somewhere else, and pray for them. You do realize and you can sympathize and empathize having gone through personal tragedies. So what's happening out in California as of today, and today is Sunday, January 12th, things are changing dramatically day by day, but right now, there are like 4 different fires happening in that region, southern region of California. 2 of them are devastating wind-fed fires. That's the key part. It's not just things are burning. It's that there are hurricane-force winds propelling a fire from house to house, tree to tree, development to development. And you don't just get to stand in your fire truck and pump water at it because the wind's blowing sideways.
Yep.
Right? It's just horrible. So anyhow, 37,000 acres in the greater Los Angeles area.
Wow.
Killed 16 people so far. 13 are still missing. 150,000 residents are under evacuation orders. 12,000 structures have been destroyed. I mean, 12,000 homes and buildings gone. It was really eerie seeing a McDonald's in embers, right? That's just a visual image you just can't comprehend.
Yeah.
No one is spared, rich or poor, famous or unknown, Republican or Democrat. This fire is just wiping through everybody. And the progress is hampered by the strong winds, plus they've been under a drought with dry conditions for a long while. There's no moisture in the air. And they had a water supply that simply was not designed for this type of disaster.
Correct.
And that's kind of the thing I want to underscore. Having lived through a disaster here, people have been quick to point out fault, right? Why weren't you prepared? You can't prepare sometimes for things of certain magnitudes. You do have a plan, and you execute on a plan, but when something far exceeds, when Godzilla comes up out of the ocean and trumps your city, you don't point fingers and go, Mayor, where was your damn Godzilla plan?
No.
You just can't do anything about it except fight it, struggle through it, and hope to see another day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, the worst thing I have to point out, kind of making a horrible situation worse, is the political blame game that a certain side of the spectrum are using to score points at someone else's tragedy.
Yeah.
We saw this with Helene. We saw people creating FEMA into being a boogeyman when there are just people like you and I out trying to help.
Yeah.
When there are people bust in from all over the world to help our situation and get power back on, and we had houses destroyed, trees everywhere, and people were pointing blame. Biden is withholding FEMA money to punish the southern states, which wasn't true.
Wasn't true.
We had Democrats salted the weather or seeded the clouds to create this hurricane to disrupt southern red states' elections, right? The most unhelpful things in the world you can say, they were there to say it. And the exact same thing is happening, I would say, at a magnitude even greater for these fires. Now that Trump is coming back into office, conservative politicians and media have jumped into the blame game without even trying to get evidence. Are you familiar with Fox News host Jesse Waters?
I am not.
He's the guy that replaced that despicable Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson was so bad that he got booted out of Fox as a legal liability, but he was replaced with an even bigger bozo. And Jesse Waters went right to DEI as a blame for the fire. So let's take a listen. But I also want to credit a guy named Chris Mowry. We're going to see a video of his where he plays a little bit of Jesse Waters' Fox News bit and shows a picture of the leadership of the LA Fire Department. And there were 3 females in the picture.
It was.
But you can hear what this guy, Jesse Waters, had to say.
Oh, yeah.
This right here, ladies and gentlemen, this is the leadership of the LA Fire Department. I sure hope they know what they're doing.
The individual on the far left of that photo is the LA Fire Police Chief. She's the first woman and LGBTQ plus individual to serve in that role, and as people call her, a DEI hire. I do want to point out her other qualifications include being a paramedic, an engineer, a fire inspector, serving as a captain, battalion chief, assistant chief, fire marshal, and deputy chief. She's been with the Los Angeles Fire Department for over 22 years, and when she took the firefighter exam, she ranked top 50 out of 16,000 applicants. So the reason you think she's unqualified is because you don't like people in the LGBTQ plus community, you don't like women, you don't like anyone who's not a straight white male. And as a straight white male myself, you should go yourself. All the other misinformation around this event, like there was no water in the fire hydrants, wrong, or they mismanaged the brush, wrong. Donald Trump and Republicans are using this moment to take political shots as people lose their life. And it's deeply disgraceful. And they should be ashamed of themselves. And so should you.
Good job, young man. Good job.
I mean, does that not give you a little bit of hope?
A lot of bit.
A little bit of hope in our future. I mean, this was a young man, early 20s, so well spoken, so on point, and just despicable what Jesse Waters and others said. What do you think about that DEI hire phrase? Got that anger face still burning?
There it is. There it is. They just give me all the passion I need, all the fire I need to keep going. But the whole DEI thing is just you have credentialed individuals and they've out-credentialed you and you feel that you are less than, and this is your way of attacking them. For him to look at those 3 individuals all suited up in their uniforms, they look like they ready to handle business, but that's not what he got from it. What he got from it was the weakest, lamest attack ever. And then every time they yell DEI, if you go and pull the credentials, you like, dang, they did all of that.
That's exactly right. They assume because you may be a female or a person of color or LGBTQ plus, that therefore you only got there, that you were unqualified, but you got there because of who you identified as.
Yeah, because if it's true that only white straight men can make it right, then how the hell did we end up where we are now?
Do you know Charlie Kirk? Have you heard that name?
I have not heard Charlie.
He's a conservative pundit who's just as despicable as the rest of them, but he tweeted once getting on a plane that, if he sees a black female, he always is going to question their qualifications.
Oh, good.
And you know what? There's a word for that.
What?
Isn't that racism?
That's what it is. But in their minds, they're not racist because they got a black friend.
they see a guy like me sitting in there. They're like, oh, white male, middle age, good. Glad I feel comfortable. You see a black female there, psh,
it's the struggle.
I got a question.
It's the struggle.
It's awful. And that's just one example, by the way. You and I could do a multi-hour episode covering all the false accusations people from Trump on down have launched in order to help their political narrative. From the fact that California cut funding on fire prevention and fire safety, false. To saving little fish called smelts, false. To hiring for diversity instead of qualifications, false. We have a water shortage for sure out there, driven by drought, driven by climate change, and all across this country, we're seeing these weather events get worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you pointed out that while they were struggling to find water with which to fight this fire, I've got a little video clip here that really just made me sick to my stomach. Let's have a listen.
While 40 million Californians suffer through unprecedented drought, one billionaire couple owns a massive share of the state's water system, seized in a series of secretive meetings 2 decades ago. That system was largely paid for by the very taxpayers whose water these billionaires hold hostage. Urban water systems are desperate for water, but in 2023, they'll receive just 5% of what they requested from the state. The Resnicks are the biggest farmers in California. As of 2007, they owned 4 San Francisco's worth of farmland, and nearly half of Americans buy at least one of their products. Their pistachios, their pomegranate juice, their mandarins, their flowers. It's all under one massive umbrella.
I'm happy to say I purchased none of those.
I'm telling you.
Worth at least $5 billion. The majority owners, the Resnicks, are worth at least $8 billion. How were they able to take over such a large percentage of what should be a shared
This is so interesting.
This is The Classroom from More Perfect Union, and today we're looking at how the Resnicks got rich. Linda.
All right, well, I'm going to put a pause there because this is I didn't realize this was an 18-minute long video.
It is a long video, and it is definitely something that our listeners just need to go to and play it themselves.
We'll have a link to this in our show notes, so take a look. But
the most important part of that particular clip is when they explain to you how behind closed doors deals are made, and this power couple was able to acquire all of that water. And they even reference something that most of our listeners probably don't even know about, and it's called paper water. And that's when you are able to say that there's more water than you actually have, and that is bought and sold and traded as well.
Wow. Human beings are interesting.
Yeah.
They are interesting. And I was reading earlier about how the Kardashians are out in that area were criticizing Gavin Newsom and the government for failure to prepare, yet somebody pointed out that during periods of drought where everybody is given a limit to the amount of water they're allowed to use,
their lawn?
They went 10 times above those limits and paid whatever fine so they could have their swimming pools and their green grass. And they just ignored any type of shared responsibility for water conservation. Yet now they're going to complain that the fire protocols are burning their precious property to the ground.
Yeah. So I think in this, and I probably should have started with this, I want to make sure that those that are impacted by these fires know that we are sending our prayers of courage, endurance, support, and strength to everyone. I have family on the West Coast, but none of them have stated that they've been impacted anyway. But I wanted to kind of elaborate and go a little bit further off of what you're saying. You've got to be less than less to use horrific situations such as this to hold people politically hostage mentally, to try to do whatever you can to create a better position for your agenda, and that's not right. And even the article, it stated that, how did they describe Governor Newsom? Criticized diversity, equity, and inclusion, California Governor Gavin Newsom. Just say Governor Gavin Newsom. And he continued to go on about his immigration policies. And then you had Trump referencing that Governor Newsom had an opportunity to sign the Water Restoration Declaration, which doesn't even exist. You just make up stuff And you get to keep doing that. I think that's awful. But what I will say is, since Trump had enough sense to recognize, or he think he knows what it looks like to put people first, he should use some of his own words to make his role as the president a little more impactful.
Oh, no. We are back to having a government that is completely uninterested in solving problems.
Don't want to do it, because this same thing that he's trying to say Governor Newsom has mismanaged for the state of California, he and his party will continue to support bills such as H.R. 6285, H.R. 3195, and H.R. 3397, which all go against making sure that the people have access to natural resources or protecting them in some form or fashion. You would rather do that, but then you're going to say this governor hasn't done what he's supposed to do.
Look at you dropping dimes with bill numbers.
Don't do that. And what I need them to do, since they got me going, I told you they should have left me alone. But what we need to do is, if I could get him and his party to write some policies that will hold people and protect people from what insurance companies are doing to those same families that are on the West Coast right now suffering. Write that policy and protect your people.
All right. We got another episode coming up about insurance that we can go off on. That's a good topic.
It is.
On the new year, this nation was racked with anxiety about terrorist attacks, or what were apparent terrorist attacks, across the nation. And just to run through some of these, we had a horrific incident in New Orleans where Shamsud Din-Jabbar, age 42, drove a pickup truck into a crowd of revelers on Bourbon Street, killed 14 people, injured dozens more, and then he was eventually shot in a shootout with police. This is a guy who was a Texas-born U.S. citizen and an Army veteran that somehow throughout his life journey ended up getting twisted into ISIS mentality and thought he was running with an ISIS cause. There's still investigations to happen, but that was just an horrific incident. I've never been to New Orleans. I know New Orleans is one of your favorite cities.
Yeah.
But I just can't imagine that you're just out there to party, have a good time, and next thing you know, you're dodging a vehicle with somebody who was intent to kill. Second incident, I think it was on the same day, where a cyber truck blew up in Las Vegas outside of a Trump Tower.
Yeah.
And again, another supposed terrorist attack initially, because what else does a car blowing up in front of a building tell you?
Yeah.
And the fact that it was in front of a Trump building said a lot. But no, this one turned out to be a 5-time Bronze Star recipient, Matthew Allen Livelsberger, 37 years old, from Chicago, mentally snapped from whatever, his time in service and then anything that's happened since. But apparently he intentionally blew himself up in that truck in front of Trump Tower. And this was as pro-MAGA, pro-Trump a guy as you possibly could get, based on all of his messages he's left behind. And he wanted a wake-up call. He was calling for additional violent action to be taken against Democrats. I mean, this guy had a message, but now he's getting, a lot of sympathy for PTSD, etc. And that's not the only one. We had a third incident right here in South Carolina.
Yeah.
You heard about this one in Greenville on Interstate 85 was shut down on January 2nd for many hours because there was a gentleman who was pulled over in a tractor trailer, Ahmad Jamal Khamis Alendi, from Oak Lawn, Illinois. I know Oak Lawn. It's near Chicago.
Wow.
He apparently was pulled over and in a panic because it turns out that he was not in the country legally. He panicked and claimed he had a bomb in his truck. I think he just was desperate, right? Desperate. There was no bomb. There was nothing, but he just threatened.
But if you ever don't want to be detained, you should probably never mention that you have a bomb.
I think that as soon as his background check was run, you'll learn all about him. So he knew the trouble he was in, and I think he just was pushed into a corner of desperation. I'm not trying to excuse it. But I'm trying to understand his motivation for even claiming there was a bomb. He's like, well, I'm just going to live up to the presumptions these people are going to have about me anyway, and just
buy
live
him
it.
some time too.
So I bring up these three events because there's a common theme amongst all three, and that is how Donald Trump and the people that put him into power across the country all immediately turned to the same narrative. And that was Biden and Harris open border policy.
They did.
Before the bombs and the fires were even extinguished, they were online, Trump included, saying that this is a result of open borders. This is a result of illegal immigration. And why does Biden and Harris and the Democrats hate America? Now let's revisit.
Okay.
The New Orleans attack. American-born, Texas-born.
That's where
you want to be hateful? Go yell at, why do we let people from Texas go around, right? You had the Cybertruck. This is a guy who was as MAGA as they come once they determined who he was. The guy from Greenville. Now, this is interesting. He was actually came into the country legally. He entered the United States on September 20th, 2018.
Okay.
Remind me, who was president in 2018?
Who could it have been?
That wasn't Obama.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it wasn't Biden.
Must have been that other person.
There was somebody in between.
Yeah.
It wasn't Hillary. She wasn't voted in.
But if we say the name.
But you know who it is.
Yeah.
All right. So he came in legally in St. Paul, Minnesota, but he failed to comply with the terms of his legal admittance. He was supposed to have followed up on paperwork and visiting a judge, the things you're supposed to do. He failed to do. Well, shoot, I forgot to pay my car taxes last year. I had to pay a little late penalty for that. So some things you just forget or not know to do. Anyhow, not excusing it.
Yeah.
But that's how he ended up being illegal, is that he just failed to follow through on his legal immigration. But that didn't stop Trump from posting on Truth Social that our country is a disaster, a laughingstock all over the world. This is what happens when you have open borders with weak, ineffective, and virtually non-existent leadership. Even in that Greenville case, while Trump didn't comment on that directly, you could just look under the Greenville News article and you can read a keyboard warrior saying he has a warrant for removal from this country already existing. South Carolina needs to hold him until his body can be shipped back to where it belongs. After some time with the Trump-led DOJ, of course, to see who else he is working with, that Kamala let in.
Oh, my God.
Again, people coming at this from a point of absolute ignorance.
Yeah.
Taking a bad situation and just making it worse.
Yeah. Let me see if Trump's going to mention all the help he's getting or we're getting from all the immigrant firefighters that are helping fight that fire in California. You're not going to mention that kind of stuff. You're just not. What's happening is all of this hate that they used to give them the springboard that they got is going to be the very same thing that brings them all down.
I don't know about that, because if you study history and you look, and I know it's cliche, but you look at the rise of the Nazi Party and how they demonized the Jewish population, led them all the way into power, brought them into world wars, led to the absolute demolition of the nation as a whole. I don't want to end up there, but I see such a parallel between blind hatred pointed towards Jewish people that they didn't know, and blind hatred towards somebody who's brown with a foreign sounding name.
Yeah.
Saying that, I'm going to put all of the problems of the world on them, whether it actually is true or not.
Yeah.
So,
just
want to end on this one note. Studies have shown that relative to native-born Americans, illegal immigrants were 41% less likely to be incarcerated, and legal immigrants were 74% less likely. They turn out to be better-behaved population overall.
Wow.
How about that? Our third topic today involves school vouchers. This is a topic we thought went away last year, but it is back. It is more furious than ever. We're going to let Live 5 News give us a quick summary as to what's going on.
The question of whether state dollars should be able to be spent on private school tuition will be back up for debate at the South Carolina State House soon. Republican lawmakers want to reinstate a program that would allow that spending after a court ruling last fall struck it down. State House reporter Mary Green has more.
Lawmakers will gavel in to begin a new legislative session here next week, Tuesday. The first item on the agenda for the Senate's Republican majority will be restoring South Carolina's controversial private school voucher program.
The urgency is because we've got a couple of thousand students in South Carolina that, because of the way the ruling came down, they've been left in no man's land.
That's y'all fault. Weeks into the current school year from the South Carolina Supreme Court found the earlier version of the education Education Scholarship Trust Fund program violated the state's constitutional ban on public dollars directly benefiting private schools. That money came from the state's general fund, so Republican senators are now proposing the money for this new program comes from lottery revenue. Lottery dollars currently pay for existing college scholarship programs like Life, Hope, and Palmetto Fellows, which can be used at private colleges.
Why do I think this will be constitutional? Because the Supreme Court has told us it's going to be constitutional.
But some Democrats are skeptical this would pass court muster, as any new voucher program is just about certain to be hit with another lawsuit.
The bigger picture is it remains unconstitutional, and I don't know how we're going to get around that. We know it's going to be challenged. And I'd love to hear your idea on how lottery dollars are not public dollars. It just seems to me that they clearly are.
As with the earlier program, families would only be eligible to receive this money if their annual income is below a certain threshold. But Democrats also took issue with this new bill raising that threshold so that a family of 4 making just shy of $200,000 a year would qualify. They say it defeats Republicans' original stated intention of the program to give more options to lower income families that otherwise can't afford those options.
We really are going to ultimately be subsidizing every private school in this state because there's going to be no disincentive for every student in that school to sign up for this program.
Now, by this time next week, Republicans hope that bill will be ready for a debate on the Senate floor.
So there's a lot here to unpack. Okay, so let's start with the voucher attempt at the previous year where they pitched it as a way to help low income. So you had to be kind of near the federal poverty line, like 150%, somewhere around there, near the poverty line.
Yeah.
So you can get something sort of a sympathetic buy-in.
Yeah.
You know, although there were still a lot of things wrong with it. It went to the state Supreme Court, and the state Supreme Court had Justice Don Beatty still part of it, who has since retired. And he was like, this is about as clear of a constitutional violation as you can get. It clearly says you can't use public tax funds to go to private schools.
That's what it said.
It's not even an interpretation. It's English language. And he was like, why did you even bring this bill up? And so you heard Senator Greg Hembry say, well, the court has absolutely gutted these poor families. And you said it. It's not the court's fault.
Their fault.
They were told this would be an illegal bill. They passed it anyway. They got families to buy into it.
Yep.
And now those families are stuck in private schools and they can't get money for it.
Yep.
That's on Greg Hembry.
That's who it's on.
And the rest of the Republican General Assembly who passed that
but
bill.
But they want the South Carolina people to bail them out.
Right.
Okay.
Well, what actually happened was that a private investor, one of Ellen Weaver's investors, one of her sugar daddies, came to the rescue with private funds and took care of it this time. But now they have not only raised that threshold, a family making near $200,000. Okay, so out goes the poverty scam. They're also increasing the amount of money, and really, this is about funding these private and for-profit institutions and these religious charter schools to be able to use them for their ideology. It's just awful. So Justice Beatty fought it. Guess who's now gone?
Justice Beatty.
So now they've got a new Supreme Court
Who's
that they think they
it?
can get this passed.
Yeah.
Just like they did with the abortion bill. Change the court, change the ruling.
If we can hold it long enough, we can change it. I think it's important for us to also recognize here that we are only talking about 2% of the student population. So all of the money that they want to funnel into support these vouchers, because they will continue to increase who all has an opportunity. You're going from about 10,000 students to about 15,000. And then so you're looking at trying to develop a way for 2% of South Carolina's student population to be successful when you're saying forget the 98. We all know that if you can help 98% of the student population be successful in South Carolina, it will benefit the state as a whole. If you help 2% of the population, the state doesn't see the benefit. But that is where they're funneling this money. So I'm just curious to see what else is going to happen there. But why take the time to pour all your money into this endeavor when we already know the history of charter schools and their survival? I think there might be a quarter of them might make it to 5 years, and then there's only maybe less than that will make it to 15 years in existence. The one educational system that's been here is the public school system. If we can take and pay a consultant millions of dollars to determine if South Carolina has too many colleges and universities? Why can't we take and pay a consultant millions of dollars to figure out what is going on in this public school system and figure out a way to make it work?
A couple of other points about what we just heard in that news article. The lottery is used to fund current state scholarships.
Yep.
Did you know that those state scholarships have not been changed from a dollar perspective for up to 2 decades?
Believe it.
Right. Now, college tuition, has that gone up?
Yes, it has gone up.
College expenses
I've been
and
out too
living
long.
conditions in
Gone
20
up.
years, you
Yeah.
bet they've gone up.
Yeah.
The scholarships have not changed. So it's the same dollar that you were given back in the early 2000s that are being given today have not kept up with the cost of education.
Yes.
Secondly, this lottery fund, lottery revenue has been decreasing year over year for the past several years. All right. The lottery is not very popular. And now when I am hearing advertisements about how the lottery will promote education, I'm wondering if some sort of suit won't be filed someday should this new voucher program go into effect, that language has to be lottery funds are going to subsidize private schools.
Yeah.
And see how popular that purchasing a lottery ticket becomes.
Did you know, when I was looking at this, did you know that the charter schools, they have sponsors? And some of these sponsors are able to pull tax dollars down to pay for the administrative activities. So there's still a portion of the tax dollars that are going into the charter schools.
Yeah.
And now with the voucher program, there will be more. But right now, those of us that don't have children in charter schools, you're still paying for charter schools to exist.
Oh, did you see the article that came out just today about Ellen Weaver in charter schools? It was in the State headline today, so I haven't had a chance to fully digest it. But basically, the federal government, who provides certain grants for education, is threatening to withhold those grants from South Carolina because of our lack of oversight on the charter schools. Like, you're supposed to be managing the affairs of charter school systems and validating they're doing what they're supposed to be doing with the money. That oversight does not exist because Ellen Weaver is too busy cozying up to Prager freaking you and banning books statewide. That's been her laser focus. What she's not focused on is the damn job of running the education system in this state. Anyhow, I'm getting hyper.
And you should.
And we're going to have to bring those complaints to her directly in person when she comes to Greenwood. Are we not?
I know. I'm excited.
We're going to have to talk about that in our next episode as we show up to Ellen Weaver U here in Greenwood.
So excited.
So, we're going to cover that subject, but it's also very timely that came up. The ACLU of South Carolina published a list that we will share in the show notes, 6 reasons why South Carolina can't afford to throw away money on private schools. These are very good reasons, all backed up by studies and facts. I'll go through the 6 reasons very quickly. But the first one was actually surprising. I didn't know about this one. In terms of learning loss in mathematics, mathematics specifically, the effects of vouchers has been worse in some states than the effect of COVID-19. So they actually ran studies of long-running voucher programs in Louisiana, Indiana, Ohio, and D.C. They found that students who used vouchers to leave public schools for private schools performed worse than their peers who stayed in public schools.
I believe that.
I want to get a better education. Well, the numbers don't show that they are. The rest of the bullet points I was aware of. Vouchers are risky for kids with disabilities because these private schools don't have to adhere to guidelines or can get away with it, not adhering to ADA guidelines. Vouchers fund discrimination because the money goes to schools that forbid LGBTQ individuals from enrolling as students or working as teachers. So you're paying for discrimination. The vouchers at a financial point are a budgetary disaster. The Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office of South Carolina had already determined a couple of years back that universal vouchers would cost the state $2.9 billion per year. Guess what? They ain't even found the $1.8 billion yet. We talked about that, a year ago?
How did they say it's no bill?
They still haven't found the $1.8 billion.
They said the money was never lost.
They still don't know where it is.
That is the quote that they said. The money was never lost. It's there. It's been there. Just don't know how it got there.
So that's why they're spending $100 million in financial...
consultants.
Consultants. What do they call them? Forensic consultants.
To find it. And still have to delay.
But it's still there.
It's there.
All right, spend it. Well, we can't really spend it because we don't know why it's there.
We don't know.
Yeah, okay. whatever, $2.9 billion sucked into this private school scam that's
Yep.
not going to help the students, but will enrich the shareholders of these private
Exactly.
schools. Vouchers mostly help wealthier families. In states with universal school vouchers, the majority of families using those vouchers were already in private schools to begin with.
There you go.
Vouchers violate the South Carolina Constitution. So no matter how you slice and dice it, the Constitution says no money shall be paid from public funds, nor shall the credit of the state or any of its political subdivisions be used to the direct benefit of religious or other private educational institutions. Right there in the Constitution. And when you know it, there's a jerk in the Senate who's filed legislation to amend the Constitution and remove that.
Oh, Jesus.
They already want to remove it because they're finding it's tough to get around. Anyhow, anything else on that subject?
It's a lot more, but let's move on.
Our final subject for today is a topic that Jumelle brought up. Would you like to lead us in this conversation?
What's the topic? What did I say?
PowerSchool data breach.
Oh, I just think that's so interesting. So there was this article that came out October, November last year. State was being made aware. This typically happens. So let me back up. Typically, when you have a breach, you get this all the time from like healthcare institutions. You'll get a letter in the mail that says, "Hey, Jumelle, just want to let you know about our privacy practices and inform you that your data has been breached." And then what they'll do is they'll give you a little cushion and say, "We'll give you a little bit of what do we call it, like credit monitoring, just to make sure that nothing shows up." Well, you're used to that on the healthcare side of things. Data breaches are going crazy. Ransomware attacks are going crazy. Well, now it is the PowerSchool. PowerSchool is one of the larger organizations. It's kind of like a practice management software, but it's a software that schools use to store identifiable information and historical contacts and data of that nature. Teachers use it. What happened was...
I actually have a news article. You want me to play the clip?
Oh, you got the clip?
I got
play
the clip.
Play the clip.
Let's play that clip.
Okay.
Well, new here at 10 o'clock tonight, state officials in both North and South Carolina now confirm data for students and teachers was compromised in a cyber attack last month.
And at the center of it all is a company that both states use. Officials say a provider of cloud-based software in North America, it's known as PowerSchool, notified officials about this breach yesterday. The breach began December 19th, affecting both student and teacher data across the company's global client base. PowerSchool says they became aware of the situation December 28th, more than a week after it started. Allegedly, the breach started when the credentials of a PowerSchool contract employee were compromised. PowerSchool says it's taken all appropriate steps to prevent the data involved from further unauthorized access or misuse. They say in part, quote, "As soon as we learned of the incident, we immediately engaged our cybersecurity response protocols and mobilized a cross-functional response team, including senior leadership and third-party cybersecurity experts." Now, the South Carolina Department of Education responding in part, quote, "During a meeting with PowerSchool senior leadership, they confirmed that personally identifiable information was compromised. The SCDE is currently working to understand the full scope of the breach." And State Superintendent of Education Ellen Weaver commented,
we don't care what she says.
PowerSchool has taken accountability for this breach. Our department will take uncompromising action to ensure we uncover the complete extent of this incident. We will insist that PowerSchool not only notify affected individuals, but also provide them with credit and identity monitoring services. The company says it does not anticipate that leaked data is being shared or
The clip cut out, by the way. So the last couple of words that reporter said wasn't even available. That was Fox Carolina, by the way.
Yeah.
So you got the gist of what occurred.
Yeah.
Just see when PragerU gets compromised and attacked, and I'm calling upon Anonymous out there to do something about PragerU. You won't hear Ellen Weaver scream about
Here's
them.
the part we're supposed to be screaming about. Well, who's at the state house? Who's currently serving in the state, in the Senate, and the House that can help us with these type attacks? Is there a bill? Did you see one? Did you see a bill that was pre-filed? Did you see one bill that would tell us?
It's personal because you know what was the second pillar of my platform when I ran.
I know.
And it was shoring up the cybersecurity and defense of our critical infrastructure.
Thank you.
I consider PowerSchool, which is running our public school systems, to be critical infrastructure.
Yeah.
So the questions that I have is, do we as a state have a copy of PowerSchool's protocols? Did we evaluate those protocols before choosing them to store our children's sensitive, identifiable information? Did we ask what their data privacy practices were, policies, or technologies? How do they prevent a contract employee from gaining access to sensitive information and exposing that access to bad faith actors? Do we know if PowerSchool regularly engages in penetration testing and employee security practice testing? These are all the things that as a state we can and should be doing before the fact, not after the fact.
Look at you. You speaking like somebody that got a little bit of experience. That's what I'm talking
my
about.
son works in that part of the world. He works in cybersecurity.
Gosh.
I was chatting with him over the holiday break. You know what part of his job is that for some of the companies that hire his firm, they send out phishing emails.
Correct. And get you.
Right? To try to see which employees are dumb and fall for.
I want $1 million. Click.
Yeah. And he'd be surprised that he could send out an email with a skull and crossbones, says, do not click this link. Danger awaits you. You will be infected and die. People will still click on the damn link.
Click it anyway.
He says people fail miserably. So you can't let human beings be the weakest part of your chain. You have to have a system in place with passwords that change daily maybe, or you use some sort of biometric access or some other physical key. But this whole, I got a password and now somebody in North Korea has my password and now somebody in North Korea has all your data. Those days have been long gone. And the fact that PowerSchool is still in that, it's not like PowerSchool was affected by a very obscure Microsoft bug, or they were compromised by some sort of quantum attack. Because you can understand that. They came out and said this was a contract employee's credentials.
Problematic.
That is the most inexcusable reason to have a cyber attack.
Yeah. I see it. I see, and I see us continuing as a state to miss the things that really matter.
And to your point, 830 some bills pre-filed.
Any of them talk about this?
Not a single one contained the word cybersecurity.
Congratulations,
Not a
South Carolina.
single one.
Not a single
one. And you know what? They actually have a committee that's titled, gosh, it's got the longest title in the world, but it's like regulations, procedures, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity. And so I watched their kickoff House meeting for this. They didn't talk about cybersecurity. They spent a lot of time on artificial intelligence because that's the sexier creature that's in the building. Cybersecurity, none of them know what they're talking about. Not a single blessed one of them. They could have had somebody in that committee who knew a thing or two and could have ensured that your data, my data, your kids' data. I'm sorry.
And parents, do not just take this, hey, we're going to make sure that you get some credit monitoring on your information. How long will you keep that in place? If information is sold on the black market, it may not move right then. And most of us don't even know about the black market. But you better protect yourself and watch.
And that's a wrap.
Yay.
On this episode of Black, White, and Blue in the South. We hope you enjoyed what you heard. I actually had fun doing this. I'm glad to be back in the seat.
I did too, yeah.
Boy, it's going to feel good. I'll be exhausted when I get home, but I feel good getting all that off my chest.
Yeah.
Please take a quick minute and leave us a rating and a review of our show. It costs you nothing, and it means everything to us. See, if you do, it will force South Carolina Representative John McCravey to resign from the rest of the committees he's been assigned to, sparing us from any of his involvement in the legislative process. If you are a blue dot in a red sea, keep the faith, keep up the hard work. Change only happens over many years of work and dedication. We're going to close out this episode with a quote from the late President Jimmy Carter. Before I give that quote, I'm going to tell you a little personal story. I was a kid in the 70s, so I was in maybe 3rd grade, 4th grade when Jimmy Carter was president. As part of a science project, I wrote to Jimmy Carter. I was living in Illinois at the time, outside of Chicago, Rolling Ridge Elementary. I remember the school. And wrote a letter to President Carter at the White House saying I was interested in solar energy. Can you send me some information? And I got the biggest package in the mail.
Oh, wow.
It was filled with pamphlets and literature and kids' activities and little science kits for solar, like a little solar panel. I got a whole bunch of stuff that really, really triggered the creative mind of a fourth grade Billy Kimler. And it gave me a love and passion for science and technology that lasted all the way through me earning a master's degree in physics. And President Carter was a nuclear scientist. He had a PhD in nuclear science. Did you know that?
No.
I mean, you knew he was a peanut farmer. You know he was in the military. You know he is Habitat for Humanity and very devout Christian. He was also a nuclear scientist.
Wow.
And so he had a personal impact on me at a very young age, and for that I'll be forever grateful. But let's close our show with these words from the great Jimmy Carter.
America did not invent human rights. In a very real sense, it's the other way around. Human rights invented America.
Yeah, that was deep.
Deep. Deep. We'll miss him.
The end.
I'll top of the morning to ya. I'm Liam the Leprechaun, and I've got a wee secret to share. ZJZDesigns.com has just unveiled their brand new St. Patrick's Day apparel. Featuring yours truly, of course. From cheeky tees to lucky prints, these designs are brimming with charm and plenty of gold. Whether you're heading to a parade or just feeling the Irish spirit, you look grand in these threads. So what are you waiting for? Skip the rainbow and head straight to ZJZDesigns.com. You'll find the pot of gold in your cart. No magic required. ZJZDesigns.com, where style is always in season.
The preceding podcast is a product of Big Media, LLC, and is copyright 2025, all rights reserved.